Hello and welcome back to the Skytiger Gaming table. I'm your host Wildscarr. Today on the table I'm going to run through a tutorial for Star Wars Battle for Hoth. I made an unboxing for it just the other day. I'll post a link to it somewhere in the description down below. And I'm going to set up for a 2-player game using scenario 1. So they say you got to pick out the scenario you want to play. So here's the scenario book here, listed under there. So you just open to the scenario you want to play. Fortunately, they have all the items that you're going to need. So you need 4 crevasses and 4 seracs. So you just pull those out. And if you have trouble finding the specific tiles, they're all double-sided. Just flip them over and you'll probably find which ones you're looking for. So, and it tells you how many you need. So you just pull those out. And then after you set the game board in the center of the table, decide whether you're going to play Rebel or Imperial. There is an icon on both sides of the board that say which one. Really, the only thing I've noticed is different between the Imperial and Rebel side is that the Imperial have AT-AT tracks walking from it. So, and then you have to note, well, this one here is Imperial on this side, but it's Rebel on that side, so you might have to flip the book around to know which way you're supposed to set everything up. So the crevasses, you just look on the board, put them just like you would up here. Put one there, and this doesn't matter which way they get placed. So you can put them in any order, any orientation, as long as they're in the hex where they go. So that is the terrain setup. Now you're going to set up for your troops. So right now, the Imperials are denoted by the white ones, Rebels by the red ones. So you just grab your box of miniatures out. So we're going to have troopers here. And here. Here and here. And then the Imperial troop also has probe droids. And then once you get it done, it will look something like this. So the scenario will also denote who's going to play first, how many cards you're going to get. However, before we get to that point, so you're going to add any special units which would be denoted on the board. That would be these here. They'll be determined by the scenario. We'll go into those a little bit more later. Just know that they are double-sided, so if you can't find something, just flip it over. You might find what you're looking for. So, and then they have the summary sheets, which are these things here. These kind of give you a quick reference for what all the units can do. And they are double-sided. There's one for Rebel and one for Imperial. So you give one to each player. And you have a quick reference so you can flip it over and see what the Rebels are about to do before they attack you. So, and then they also have the quick reference card for the terrain. Just place it somewhere close. And it is double-sided. It has the same thing. So, and then the card holder sections, they go on each side. They kind of lock into place like this. And they match the color of the players that they're playing. So Imperial get the dark gray, Rebels get the light tan color. So, and then each player is going to choose a side, and then you're going to take your 16 starting cards. This will make up your deck. This will pretty much be almost identical to each one. They have a little few differences between the Rebels and Imperials, but for the most part, you're going to have the same thing. Then you decide if you want to use the leaders. The leaders will be denoted by the green boxes at the bottom of all the cards. And the Imperials, they have Darth Vader, Maximilian Beers, or Firmius Piet. The Rebel cards, or the Rebel side, they have Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, or Han Solo. And there's 3 cards for each one, for each leader, and you're only going to use 1 leader. I mean, I guess if you wanted to get crazy, you could throw them all in there and just have a really epic battle. Once you get that done, you just shuffle them up. You take the 3 from there and you shuffle them, and you set them next to the board. The cards with these backs, these are used for the campaign. You're not going to use these in a normal quick scenario. And we'll go over these in another video where I'll actually go over the campaigns. So for now, you can just put those back in the box. And then the starting player, once you shuffle all your cards up, pretty much like so, and the scenario will note how many you start with. I believe in this one, for scenario 1, the Galactic Empire will start with 3. So you just take them and sit them into your tray like so. And then the Rebels, they get 4. So you pretty much send them just like that. And I know I did not shuffle the Rebel cards. That's not going to matter. I'm just showing you how to set up. So that is what the start would look like. And then from there, whoever starts, you play a card, you do the thing, and it goes back and forth like that. So I know we set up for scenario 1, but I might change things around while I explain some of the different unit types. So, for example, if it was on my turn to play, you take a card like so, and it has these little icons on the left. There's 2 different kinds. And so right here, here's the different kinds. So you have the ones like this that show the board on the map and have like a little number in the middle of it. It'll say you can move 1 unit on this section of the board, and that's how it's denoted with these 2 red-orange lines that divide the board into 3 sections. So this is saying you can activate 1 unit on this side, and plus the same when drawing a new command card, draw 2 and discard the other. They're pretty self-explanatory. Whereas these, when it tells you to order 3 units of the same type, these units may move 1 additional hex. What this is saying is you can choose 3 of the same type anywhere on the board. So you could say, I'm going to choose this unit, and that unit, and they're going to move and activate. They just have to be the same type. Now, if you wanted to use this card, say on the probe droids, since there's only 2 probe droid units, then you basically would not use the 3rd one. You cannot activate a unit more than once. So you can't, like if you play this card where it says activate 3 units, you cannot activate 1 unit more than once. So you can't activate this one once, and you can't then you can't activate this probe droid twice. You're just kind of out of one. So, and then the different cards do the different things. Like here's the assault cards where you can do all of the units in one section. Here's one for the raid that does 2. And there kind of just denotes, you know, where you can move troops. And you have a choice. You can play them in any order you want to, but just know after you play the card and do the thing, you discard it to a discard pile, and then you draw up to replace whatever card you just played. So you always have the 3 cards or 4, depending on what you start with. Whatever your starting hand that the scenario says, that's what you start with, or always have in your hand. So now, when you activate a unit, sometimes you can use these little tokens right here and be like for example, if I play this card, this raid, I say, just as a reminder, you can say, I'm going to activate these 2 units. These don't mean anything other than a reference to say, hey, these are the 2 units that I'm activating. Once you activate them, you can look at your handy dandy little reference card that we put on the board, and that'll tell you with troopers, they can move 1 hex and shoot, or they can move 2 hexes and then not shoot. Whereas if you're going to activate probe droids, they can always move 2 hexes and always attack. The way you determine if you're in range to attack is this chart right here tells you that troopers, as long as they only move 1 hex or stay stationary, they can shoot up to 3 hexes away. And the farther they shoot, the less strength they have. So if they're 1 hex away, so we'll go ahead and move into range. So if you move this one up 1, 2, 3, you could then shoot this unit here, and you'd be rolling 1 die because they are 3 hexes away. If the troopers were here, then you'd be rolling 2 dice. If they were here, you'd be rolling 3 dice, which also notes whenever you're in the same 1 hex away, that's considered close combat for references when it states close combat. And then once you roll, so after you have moved and you decided that you're going to attack, then that's where the dice come into play. So right now, moving, you always move everything you activate and then you shoot. So for this card, you would move this unit and move this unit, and then you can take these and put them off the board. And then you would go into the attack phase. So here's where the dice come into play. So the different phases on the dice, this one here, this hits anything. And since there's 6 dice that come in the game, this is referencing the sides that each die has. So one side has the blast, which can hit anything. There's 2 sides for troopers, so that means 2 sides of the dice can hit troopers. This is a hit. This gear icon means it hits a vehicle. This purple hex with an arrow means a retreat icon, and then the red X means that's a complete miss. So for these troopers to shoot these troopers, they would have to roll and get either the blast icon or a trooper icon to actually hit. So you take one of these, because if they're shooting that one, you would roll this, and that's a complete miss. Now, if they was to roll a trooper, the rebels would lose 1, and you just throw them back in the box. And that's it. Now, the amount of troopers in a unit, or the amount of models in a unit, is basically your hit points for that unit. So no matter how many units or how many models are in the unit, they always roll the same amount of dice. So if later in the game, the rebels have attacked this Imperial unit and taken them down to 1 figure like this, they are still going to roll the same amount. Even if this unit comes up here, this Imperial unit would still roll 3 dice against that one. So you would take the 3 dice and roll it up, and this would be considered a miss because you're fighting infantry. This would be considered a hit, so you would take 1 away. and this would be considered a retreat. Now that I've rolled a retreat, I'll quickly go over that. So if you roll the retreat icon, that means whatever unit you are attacking will retreat. They move back, and they have to move back closer to their board edge. So that means they cannot retreat going laterally to the left or right. They have to move backwards. If they are unable to move backwards, say for example, these troops were here, this troop got here somehow, and this is the one they were attacking. If they're not able to retreat, however many retreat icons you roll, you treat it like a hit, and they would just lose a trooper. There might be scenarios where you're stuck with somehow in impassable terrain and you have to retreat and you have nowhere to go. It's considered, you know, you're going to lose a trooper just like that. So that's how that works. And so anytime you roll the gear icon when you're fighting infantry, that means it's a miss. If you roll the X, it's a miss. And then, of course, the retreat, depending on the scenario or the special rules, it won't affect them at all. But a blast normally always hits. And then it'll even tell you over here on the quick reference card what you need to attack. So, for instance, the troopers, you have to roll the trooper or the hit. The probe droids, you can only hit them with a blast icon. I'll go over AT-ATs in a minute. They're a little bit different. The snow speeders, they use the vehicle icon or the blast. And then the artillery emplacements, you can only hit those on a blast. So, and that's how that works. Now, for the big lumbering AT-ATs, if we'll go ahead and put this back over here for right now. The AT-ATs, they are going to work a little bit different. So if a unit is attacking an AT-AT, and we'll just quickly go over this. So say this rebel trooper unit is going to be attacking this AT-AT. They would roll 3 dice. So you're looking for blast icons and vehicle icons. So that would be a complete miss. Say it was the following turn. There you go. You got 1 hit. Now, normally a hit on any other unit means that they're automatically taken out. Unfortunately, if you roll a hit like this, you have to confirm and then again roll a blast marker. So that means the AT-AT still survived. Also, AT-ATs cannot retreat. They ignore any retreat icons that are rolled. So the only way, so the initial attack roll, you have to get a blast or a vehicle, and then you have to re-roll, and only the blast icon will count as a hit. Once you get that, you defeat the unit, and you get it as a victory medal on your tracker. If you roll the vehicle icon on an AT-AT, and then when you re-roll, if you get the vehicle icon, that doesn't count. You have to have the blast icon to confirm. And since there's only 1 blast icon on the die, it is very hard to take out an AT-AT. It's not impossible, but very difficult. And that is how movement and attacking works. Also, whenever you do attack, you have to make sure that you have line of sight to the target you're attacking. Line of sight basically means that you can see the unit. So right here with nothing in the way, you know that you have line of sight. However, if there are units, let's say this unit was still back here, you would have to draw, I mean, you can use an imaginary line, or you can use one of these little handy dandy little laser lines like this to show you have to draw a line from the center of your hex to the center of the hex you're trying to target. They can go alongside the hex of another one. For example, this Serax normally blocks line of sight. So, but because it's going along the edge, this unit, if it was in range, would still be able to shoot this unit. So we'll just do this right here. So that right there means there would still be 2 hexes away and they would still be able to attack. Now, if this unit was here, even though they're 3 hexes away, because the line goes through any part of an impassable terrain, that means that you would not be able to attack that unit. Now, the difference, you also cannot attack through another unit. So even though this line attacking from this unit to that unit, it's not line of sight because you cannot attack through your own people, and it blocks line of sight from here. If this was not here, then you would be able to. But because this is here, you would not be able to attack. Now, if something gave you the chance to attack that far away and there was troopers here, that would still block line of sight because there is something on this side of your line and that side of your line that would block your line of sight. Now, if you were trying to attack this rebel group and you were drawing from this unit, that would still not be allowed because you're still crossing through this group right here if you draw the line through the center of the center. So that would still not be an allowed hit. Granted, I know they're out of range. I'm just using that as an example. And then these hexes here on the side, they act as impassable terrain. So if you're here, that would still be a legal hit. But if you have troopers here, then you would not be able to attack from this unit to that one. So there are different types of terrain. For example, the Seracs are always impassable and always block line of sight. You cannot move into them. The crevasse, you can draw a line of sight across them, but you cannot move through them. You also, when moving, you cannot move through or shoot through your own unit. So even though, like this unit right here, could not move over here because they would be passing through their own unit. That would not be allowed. So the other types of terrain, and we'll quickly go over them real quick. So this here, which is the ridges, AT-ATs can never move onto these, but troopers and snow speeders and probe droids can. Anytime there is a troopers on top or any unit on top, anything shooting them is -1 die. So even though an AT-AT normally gets 3, they can only attack with 2. If there are units on the other side, it blocks line of sight, so you cannot shoot. So this rebel unit or the AT-AT could not shoot at each other. Now, if there were other ridges and these units were here and these units were here, they can shoot each other normally without penalty. Well, hang on. Yes, they have to be on another ridge hex. So they would shoot at each other normally, but this means they would get a -1. They would get a -1 shooting them. This group shooting them, not a minus. They're considered to have the high ground. So that's kind of how that works. The other icons, you have buildings and wreckages. That's a trench. So building and wreckages, a unit that enters building or a wreckage hex must stop and may not move any farther that turn. A unit may not attack the turn it moves onto a building, wreckage, hex, or wreckage hex. A vehicle unit on a building, wreckage hex reduces the number of attack dice it rolls by 2. So if snow speeders or AT-ATs are on here, they roll less dice. These also block line of sight. So, for example, blocks line of sight, and once they move out, like even if they only move 1, they are still not able to attack that round that they move onto those. They do offer protection though, so it reduces the number of dice attacked by them. Vehicles reduce the number of dice by 2, other units reduce the number of attack dice by 1. So these troopers would be -1 shooting into here, but if the AT-AT was attacking rebel troops, it would be -2. So the trenches, which is conveniently on the other side of this terrain, right here, when attacking an infantry unit on a trench, all units reduce the number of attack dice rolled by 1. In addition, an infantry unit on trench hex may ignore one retreat rolled against it. So if you roll this and roll a retreat, the infantry can ignore the first one. But if you roll 2 retreats, then they have to retreat as normal. So, and that's how the different terrains work. There's a few other icons, like shield generators. Those come out on, I believe it's scenario 10, and again used in the scenario 18. These operate and can only be hit by rolling a blast marker. The special rules for them depend, like scenario 10, the Imperial have to blow up both of them to win. So, and then if you got the special promo sets, these icons will replace these. So, also the same way, I believe it's the final assault where the ion cannon comes out. It again, if you had the promo set, was replaced by the model. If the models, if you're told to place the model onto a hex that has terrain where it's legal to do so, then they get the same benefit. So if the AT-AT was trying to shoot the ion cannon, it would be a -1 to attack it because of the terrain. So on and so forth. So even if it was in a building or in a rebel, so the different scenarios do different things, and you can even make your own custom scenarios. Now, the different unit icons that you can add, there are 5 different unit icons. So there's the assault icon, which are these. They are placed on a troop like this. So that's the assault icon. They're special troops and are highly trained to operate in hostile environments. After resolving a close combat attack, if an ordered assault unit succeeds in eliminating an enemy unit or forcing it to retreat, the assaulting unit may conduct a breakthrough. It moves into the vacated hex and attacks again. An assault unit may conduct only 1 breakthrough per turn. The breakthrough attack must be completed before another unit may attack, and the terrain movement and attack restrictions still apply for the breakthrough. For example, an assault unit that conducts a breakthrough by moving into a vacated wreckage hex will not be able to attack again. So just like if you move onto this normally, and you take this and move it with it on a breakthrough, they will not be able to attack because you can't attack on the same turn you move into one. So that's basically what that's saying. The breakthrough attack may target an enemy unit in range. Any unit. So, and then the scout is these special forces can give a significant battle advantage to your friendly units by providing information to enemy troops. When a scout unit occupies a ridge hex, which means these here, so if this troop is here, and they are, whoops, sorry, they are the scout unit. When a scout unit occupies a ridge hex and has line of sight from any distance to an enemy unit, any other friendly unit attacking this enemy rolls 1 extra die. So if this unit was attacking this AT-AT because the scout unit can see it, they would roll extra dice. So on and so forth. And that goes for anything on the board. All right. And then the E-Web, which are these icons. So if this Stormtrooper unit has the E-Web, as long as they are stationary, here, I'll just read it down from here. So E-Web units start every battle with the badge on its in-place side, which is this one here. There's 2 different sides. There's in-place and then mobile. After a unit has been ordered and has moved, put the badge on its moving side. After this unit has been ordered and has not moved, put the badge on its in-place side. An E-Web with the badge on the moving side behaves like a standard infantry unit, so there's no difference between this one and that one if it's on the moving side. An E-Web with the badge on the in-place side may, every time it attacks, re-roll any number of the attack dice 1 time. So you get dice re-rolls. Not a bad call. The other icons you can have are elite troops. So these are veteran troops that have learned the importance of mobility during battle. Elite infantry units may move 0 to 2 hexes and still attack. However, terrain movement and attack restrictions still apply. And then if you put these on speeder units, they act slightly different. So elite snow speeders, squadrons are formed from the best pilots in the rebellion. Elite snow speeder units start with 4 miniatures per unit. So normally they are only 3, but if you make them elite, and that fills up the hex really quick. So they start with 4, and you'll have to get creative as to where you want to put that elite token. And then when you get ready to move them, good luck getting them all to move where you want them to move. So that is how the elite icons work. The other things that you can notice, even though you have these quick references on page 8 of the rule book, they have a few extra rules. Like the snow speeders are flying units. So even though these crevasses are impassable, snow speeders can actually move onto them. They're the only units that can. That's considered their fighting. And it tells you here it can move 0 to 3 hexes and can move on to crevasse hexes. There's other little rules, and it kind of tells you on here as well. Like for the Imperial probe droids, eliminating an Imperial probe droid unit does not grant a victory point unless it specifically states in the game, because like scenario 1, you actually get double the points for that. But normally, like this little icon here that has a little X next to the rebel, that means you're not going to be able to get a rebel unit or a victory model by doing that. And let's go over victory models real quick. So victory models happen, that's what this little tracker down here is at the bottom of each board here in the rebel. It's like scenario 1 tells you you have to get 4 victory medals. If the Imperial say this Imperial right here is targeting this Rebel unit, and they take all the Rebel units out. You take 2, you throw them back in the box, and you take the last model from that unit and put it on your victory tracker right here. This denotes that you so far have 1 victory medal. If you succeed at whatever the victory medal is, so right now the scenario 1 would be 4 victory medals, that would be a win. If the rebels get it before you, then so be it. Like on scenario 1, it specifically tells you that if you eliminate an Imperial probe droid unit, you may gain 2 victory medals. So if a rebel unit was able to defeat both of these would count as a victory medal. So yeah, the scenarios have different things. And that is pretty much all the rules you need to get started playing. There are other rules. I kind of like this on the back of the board, how it has the different scenarios that show the line of sight with specific cases. So, but that should be pretty much it. And like I said, most of the tokens, they're all double-sided. So like if you can't find something, just flip it over and they'll let you know. These here are the artillery emplacements. These artillery emplacements are stationary, so they cannot move, so they ignore retreats as well, and they can shoot up to 4 hexes away. So that's kind of the difference between those and other units. So, and it does remind you on the card that they ignore retreats, and you do not get a victory point if you take those out, unless otherwise stated. So like if you take these out, they don't go over here, they just go back in the box. So, and that's that. So I will bring this back to the table soon and do some actual playthroughs, but that is the breakdown on how you set up and a quick tutorial for how all the units work. If you have any questions, put them in the comments down below and I'll try to answer them as soon as I can. If you pointed out anything that I made a mistake on, let me know and I will correct that. And like, comment, and share down below. Let me know how I'm doing, and we'll see you in the future. May the Force be with you. Thank you.